What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today it's time to look at another winning Digimon deck from over in Japan. Of course, BT10 is out and legal there. We've not looked at any winning BT10 decks so far. Now seems like a pretty good time to do so. And it is worth noting that the BT10 decks that are doing well seem to be pretty heavy BT10. But that is, of course, it's a very themed set in terms of the whole Digicross malarkey, so that's probably not terribly surprising. So yeah, this one went and won an Evolution Cup. It was tweeted out by Seagull_2, TO, so they've gone and shared the list. This one won an Evolution Cup. That means it's probably quite nice. So let's start off looking at the Digitamer, and it's one we're seeing in a lot of these BT10 decks popping up. It is Pikmon's. Translations here from the lovely folks over at DigimonCard.dev. When attacking, if this Digimon has Xross Heart in its traits, draw a card. It shouldn't surprise anyone that this is seeing so much play, and seriously, if you go looking at these BT10 decks, this one is popping up everywhere, and that really shouldn't surprise anyone, because you're drawing, and drawing is good. And it's for any Xross Heart deck. Now, clearly, this is a Xross Heart deck. I've pretty much given that away already. But make no mistake about it, in any Xross Heart deck, this is one you need to consider very strongly indeed. Now, in terms of level 3s, we've got one that I find pretty gosh darned adorable. We've got ourselves Sparrowmon. Now, this is one of the many Digimon we've seen that can Digivolve as a 2-cost from any level 2 with Xross Heart. So even though Pikmon's is a yellow Digitamer, doesn't really matter, which is huge, you can Digivolve up into this. And this obviously explains why so many of these decks are able to play Pikmons, even though they're not necessarily all yellow decks. And then we've also got a skill on all turns. While you have a Digimon or Tamer with Xross Heart or Twilight in its traits, you gain 3,000 power. And on deletion save, which says you can put this card under one of your Tamers as its bottom Digivolution card. Oh yeah, and it's also got an inheritable skill that will give Shoutmon or Mervamon reboot, which is to say you want to spend on your opponent's turn. That's pretty gosh darn good. Now, the level 3s seem to be played as full playsets here, and we've also got ourselves a playset of the new Starmons. Once again, it can Digivolve as a 0-cost from any level 2 with Xross Heart in its traits, though it is yellow, so it's less important here. On deletion save, you can put it under one of your Tamers, and when you're attacking, if this Digimon has Shoutmon in its name, you draw a card. Yes, that will combo very nicely with Pikmons, and mean you will often be attacking with a Shoutmon that's got Xross Heart in its traits, because the ones we're playing do, and then you'll be drawing 2 cards every time you attack. Yes, that's extremely good, and yes, that's extremely relevant. Speaking of Shoutmon, the other level 3 we see here is the Shoutmon. Once again, you can Digivolve for 0 from any level 2 with Xross Heart in its traits. So even though we've got 1 black, 1 red, and 1 yellow level 3, they can all Digivolve from Pikmon, which is awesome. On play, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add a Digimon card and a Tamer card, both with Xross Heart in their traits, to your hand. Very, very good search in this particular deck. On deletion save, shockingly, and on your turn, while this Digimon has Shoutmon in its name as an inheritable skill, it gains Rush. You can attack the turn you come into play. Remember, we're going to see in a minute, but the Xross Heart Digimon can Digicross, i.e. you can play them with Digivolution sources already under them, and that's why Rush comes in as an inheritable skill here, so you can essentially play it with Shoutmon under, and then immediately attack, which is a good thing. Moving up into level 4s, we've again got a real mix of colours here. We've got ourselves the yellow Dorulimon. Let's go for that one. It can Digivolve as a 2-cost from any level 3 with Xross Heart in its traits, so mixing colours here really not an issue. And on play, if you have another Digimon or a Tamer with Xross Heart in its traits, one of your opponent's Digimon loses 3,000 power until the end of their next turn. It's a classic yellow skill, but it's good for either lowering power to delete them straight off, or to put them in range of something else. And then, shockingly enough, on deletion, save. Plus an inheritable skill that while you've got Shoutmon in your name, all of your opponent's security Digimon lose 2,000 power, making it way more likely you're going to be able to burst through them, which is clearly a very nice thing indeed. We've also got a green level 4 here. It is Ballistamon, and you may have noticed that so far I have only shown you Digimon from BT10. The theme is strong. Once again, you can Digivolve from any level 3 with Xross Heart in its traits for 2 memory. On your opponent's turn, while you have another Digimon or Tamer with Xross Heart in its traits, you gain Blocker. It's important to have blockers to try and, stop your opponent winning. And on deletion, shockingly enough, just like everything we've looked at so far, it has Save. Plus an inheritable skill where if this Digimon has Shoutmon in its name, you gain Piercing. So we're really building up these inheritable skills. You've got Piercing, you've got Reboot, you're drawing cards, you're lowering your opponent's power. This is all going rather nicely. And then the last level 4 we've got here is actually a dual color Digimon. We have got the red and yellow Shoutmon X4. Now, this one's got Material Save 2. When you would be deleted, you can place 2 of this Digimon's Digivolution cards that are in this Digimon's Digicross requirements under one of your Tamers in any order. That is to say Shoutmon, Ballistamon, Darulmon, or Starmons, all of which you will notice we are playing in this deck. When you play, you draw 2. Bearing in mind, we've already seen there's good draw power in this deck, so the drawing is strong in this deck. Really good draw. And at the end of your attack, you may place all of this Digimon's Digivolution cards under one of your Tamers to unsuspend one of your Tamers and delete this Digimon. Basically, stash all of your Digivolution sources under a Tamer, we'll get to the Tamers in a minute, and unsuspend a Digimon at the cost of deleting this. Now, this is the first one we've seen in the deck with Digicross. It's Digicross -2, Shoutmon, Ballistamon, Darulmon, and Starmons. Remember, all 4 of those are in the deck. What that means is you can play up to 1 of each of those cards under Shoutmon as you play and reduce the cost by 2 for each one. So you can play it with a Shoutmon and a Ballistamon and a Darulmon and a Starmons underneath, and it becomes a 1 cost to play card, which is kind of a little bit silly. But remember, Shoutmon will give you Rush if you do that. Starmons will allow you to draw a card when you are attacking, which you can do straight away because of the whole rush thing. Darulmon will lower one of your opponent's Digimon by 2,000 power, and Ballistamon will give you Piercing, and all of those inheritable skills will be on the board immediately as soon as you play this as a 1 cost, if you can get all the cards under it as you play, which is of course not the easiest thing to do. Now, interestingly enough, there's no level 6s in this deck. You don't need level 6s. I've already shown you we've got Rush and Piercing and playing Digimon cheaply and drawing lots of cards and all of that. But there is a level 5, there's 3 copies of it, and we are talking about the dual colour Shoutmon X5, which honestly is as good as a level 6. You don't need any other level 6s, this will do. Firstly, you've got Security Attack +1, which is nice. Secondly, you've got Blocker, and blockers are good. Thirdly, you've got Material Save 3. Put 3 evolution sources under a Tamer as this gets deleted. And you've got Digicross 2 from Shoutmon, Ballistamon, Darulmon, Starmons, and Sparrowmon. The same as the previous Shoutmon we looked at, except now you can add in Sparrowmon as well, and then along with everything else you also get the reboot that Sparrowmon gives you. And yes, if you are able to get all 5 of those cards in hand, then it's a bit of an ask. But if you can get all 5 of those cards in hand with Shoutmon X5, you can play Shoutmon X5 as a 0-cost Digimon. You know, all of that draw we've been talking about all video? Yeah, that's going to help you out quite a lot. And this could potentially be a 0-cost to play Digimon with Security Attack +1, Blocker, Piercing, Reboot, Draw Power, lowering your opponent's Digimon power, etc. It can get absolutely redonk. Now, we don't have any level 6s in the deck. We do have a single level 7, and as a little bit of an oddity, it's not even from BT10. Every card so far has been from BT10. But what we've got is the Dexmon that came around in BT9, and it's ridiculous. When you would play this card, you reduce the cost by 3 for each of your opponent's Digimon and Tamers in play. So basically, either your opponent's not doing very well, or your opponent is getting a bunch of stuff out, and you can play Dexmon way, way cheaper. When you play or Digivolve, you de-Digivolve 1 to all of your opponent's Digimon, and then delete all of your opponent's level 4 or lower. So any evolved level 5, you can just de-Digivolve and then delete them. If they're a hard-casted level 5, you actually can't, because you can't de-Digivolve them. But then any level 4s or below also go. It's a little bit nuts. And then at the end of your opponent's turn, once per turn, you delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost. Yeah, this is board wipe after board wipe after board wipe. And if you can, it's very expensive unless your opponent's doing well, in which case you play it for cheap, but then you start wrecking your opponent's board and it totally works out. It's in there as a single copy. It's not the most important thing in the deck, but it's still pretty gosh darn good. Now, in terms of Tamers, there's actually 14 in the deck. There are a lot of them, but remember, Digicross is big on Tamers, so there's a very good reason why. And of the 14, 12 of them are actually from BT10. So we have ourselves a lovely little playset of Taiki Kudo. Now, this is the one on play, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add a card with Cross Heart in its traits among them, and a Digimon card with Cross Heart in its traits goes under this Tamer. Now remember, the whole point of this deck is you're trying to get the right Digimon in hand so you can hardcast these Digimon cheaply with a bunch of built-in inheritable skills. So playing this and being able to put one into your hand and one under Taiki Kudo is clearly a very good thing. And then on your turn, when you play one of your Digimon with Digicross requirements, you can suspend this Tamer and also place cards from under your Tamers into Digivolution sources using Digicross. I.e., when you're playing the Digicross Digimon, you can use cards from underneath your Tamers, so this is all coming together very nicely. It searches Digicross, it puts them under you, and then it lets you play them from under your Tamers as your Digimon are played using Digicross. This is a very good thing. We also have a playset coming in here of Jeremy Tsurugi. And this one says on play, you may play a Ballistamon from your hand or from under one of your Tamers for free, which is quite nice. And on your turn, when you play a Digimon with Cross Heart in its traits, you can suspend to gain a memory. Bearing in mind that's kind of all we're doing in this deck, that's a very good thing. And then we've also got a playset of Anji Hinamoto, and this is the one that lets you play a Darulamon from your hand or from under one of your Tamers for free. And on your turn, when you play a Digimon with Cross Heart in its traits, you can suspend to draw a card. Put that together with the Tamer we just looked at, the green Tamer, that Jeremy Tsurugi, and what you actually end up with is every time you play a Cross Heart, you can draw a card and gain a memory. And to be fair, if you've got multiple Jeremy, you gain multiple memory, and if you've got multiple Angie, you draw multiple cards. This is awesome. Now, we do actually have one more Tamer played as a dual colour Tamer, and it's actually not from BT10. What we've got here is the dual colour Tai Kamiya and Kari Kamiya, wonder if they're related, that came around in BT9. Now, what we've got here is at the start of your turn, if you've got 3 or fewer security cards, gain a memory. If your opponent has 3 or fewer security, gain a memory. But when your red or yellow Digimon attacks, you can suspend this Tamer to give all of your opponent's security Digimon minus 2,000 power for the turn. Bearing in mind, we've also got another skill we're taking advantage of. This is the Darulamon here, that gives all of your opponent's security Digimon minus 2,000 power. And that just means that when you're attacking the stack, it is way more likely that your Digimon survive. Because bearing in mind, the biggest Digimon we're actually rocking with here is your 10,000 power level 5. Well, if you're lowering your opponent's security Digimon by 4,000, it's the equivalent of attacking with a 14,000 power Digimon, which is realistically only really going to be deleted by level 7s, and this is a very, very good thing indeed. It's why you don't need to muck around with level 6s. These will work rather nicely indeed. Now, in terms of option cards, we do actually have option cards from sets that aren't BT10. So what we've got here is a rather common zero-cost yellow option card. It's Blinding Ray. For 0 memory, you trash the top card of your security and gain 2 memory. Now, obviously, this is not something you just want to do willy-nilly. Obviously, you've got to time this correctly and all of that. But gaining 2 memory for 0 cost, clearly a good thing that can help you out rather nicely indeed. We've then got the red option card Pyrosphere from EX2. Delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 3000 power or less. If this effect didn't delete your opponent's Digimon, draw 2 cards. So either you're getting rid of a Digimon or you're drawing 2. And again, when you're playing around with these Digicross Digimon and you're constantly having to try and get a real mix of different Digimon into your hand at the same time in order to try and really take advantage of Digicross, the more draw you've got, the better. This is a very, very good thing indeed. And then we finish off with a nice multicolour option card, or a dual colour option card. We've got Sunrise Break from BT9, lets you play a red or yellow tamer from your hand without paying its memory cost, although it is a 5 cost, so you are still kind of playing it. And then one of your opponent's Digimon loses 3000 power for each red or yellow tamer you have in play. So this one's kind of ridiculous, because it is going to... you've got lots of red and yellow tamers here, and 1 green, I suppose. You are going to be wrecking your opponent's board here, and this is really rather lovely indeed. I like this deck. It's a very, very different kind of deck. If you're used to the English BT8 format we're in at the moment, this is going to look very strange. It's not your traditional just Digivolve up kind of deck. This is very much built around, let's get the right Digimon in hand, let's hardcast them with all of their skills, and then smash with a level 5 because we don't need level 6s. And I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I am seeing these Digicross decks popping up all over in Japan, and this seems to be one of the more popular builds. And look, it went and won an Evolution Cup, and those things aren't the easiest to win. So that's what I think, but I want to know what you think. Are you excited for these kind of decks? Do you think they're going to be good enough? Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk Digimon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.